Hello, and welcome back to Weekly Polls Pick of the Week, episode number 62. This is a podcast where we talk about primarily new single-issue comics. My name is Mike, and I'm back here once again with Steve. If you're joining us for the very first time, and we're so happy to have you, we are two dudes who are back into the comic scene after a long hiatus. As we've been doing for the past few episodes, I thought I'd kick us off with a kind of open-ended question for you, Steve, and I'll also try to chime in. So after we recorded last time and we had Jared with us, we started to talk about this in a little bit of depth. But we started to talk about the cost of comics. Mm-hmm. So like we can remember back in the 80s or 90s and others remember even earlier when comics used to be less than $1 or even $1 something or what have you. And now for like one single issue comic, it ranges. I'm just looking at the ones I have in front of me. I do have one that's $2.99, but I think that's a rarity. I think it's generally $5 or $6. Mm-hmm. So what do you think? Are comics too expensive? Does that mean that they're no longer targeting the same audience? Just love to hear your thought on that.
It's a good question. I think that, so first, comics are too expensive, but so let me start first from a consumer perspective. They are too expensive for the amount of material you get for your investment. So let's just, I think most comics aren't worth anything after we walk out of the store with them. I think most comics are probably worth what we paid for them or less. It's kind of like buying a new car. Like you buy a new car and you drive off the lot and it depreciates in value. I think most comics, unless it's a special edition or special cover, some special situation, they're not really worth much, right? They're throwaway. Okay, so a comic book takes us how long? 10, 15 minutes to read? So you're paying, let's say $5 for 15 minutes of entertainment. Mm-hmm. What else can you get for $5? You can get maybe like a matinee movie and spend 2 hours watching a matinee if you're lucky. Maybe I think they're more, maybe $7, $8 for matinee now. But so it's tough because from our perspective, it's not a lot of return on investment because they're really not worth anything. It's about 10 to 15 minutes of entertainment and you're done with it. On the other side of it, I also see the cost of shipping, the cost of production, the cost you have to pay the creatives, you have to pay the writers, the letterers, the colorists, all the people behind the scenes. It's a business. So you have to make money to keep the business going. So I understand all the other things that, distribution. The comic book stores have to make some money, so everyone has to have some kind of profit for this to continue. Otherwise, we won't have comics anymore. Yeah. So on one hand, it does hurt a little bit when you pay $5 for a comic book that you'll be pretty much done with most of the time in 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, if you enjoy the art form, if you enjoy the format and you enjoy the work that people put into it, because it does take a lot of work to create a comic book. I think because we spend 15 minutes reading it, the amount of time it takes and the energy it takes to create it, because you can break down layouts, you can break down colors, pencils, writing, all the people behind the scenes, all the editing. Yeah. So it's a lot to create this 15 minutes of entertainment. So I see both sides of it. I love the format. I love comics. So I don't mind shelling out some cash and we come here every week to talk about them, to celebrate them. So yeah, I see both sides of it. It's tough because now with inflation and everything else, everything's more expensive. Mm-hmm. Just the nature of the business. So it is tough though. The last part of your question, you mentioned the target audience, because most kids won't have the disposable income like we did back. We really didn't have it back then, but it hurt a lot less to spend 99 cents on a book and, versus now. So it's tough because it's a tough sell when there's so much entertainment on our phones. Mm-hmm. You can be entertained on TikTok X or YouTube or whatever for hours and hours and hours. These platforms are designed to keep you scrolling, and you're plugged into the matrix of them.
Oh yeah.
And I don't want to say it's free, but they can keep you engaged. They're designed to keep you engaged. So I do get why there's so much content out there now. There's so much to do. There's so many things vying for your attention. It is tough to sell someone on a $5 comic book when they get 15 minutes out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Long, drawn out answer to your question.
Not at all. It's great. Yeah, it sounds like you had some thought about this. I actually feel like I need to spend a little bit more time because I want to try to immerse myself in the artwork. So if sometimes there's cases where there's not a lot to read, but I really try to take my time and look at all the detail and appreciate what's happening. And that is like you go to a museum, right? And you look at artwork, and you can just kind of blink at the Mona Lisa and walk away and like, oh, I saw it. But I think that's the one component here that's different from books, from television, from movies. You can really just observe and examine the artwork. And I think that is for people that love that type of visual medium. And of course, there also can be, great dialogue and action and pacing that you don't get from like a prose book or whatever. So that's something that I am willing to pay for the value. Sometimes I feel like when it's something is $5.99, $6, and there's some cases when I just go through it so quickly, and maybe it just doesn't hit me. It does feel like it's not a big value. But I used to also, when I was younger, I used to get like the older stuff, like maybe it was 25 cents, and I didn't care because it was new to me. Yeah. And I would like to do more of that actually, because they have that at like library, my used bookstores and my library and things like that. But anyway, for people that can't afford it, you can do that. And there is also stuff available online through platforms that I've talked about, like Hoopla. If you're in the US, I don't know if it's available overseas, but maybe there's something else. Or Libby, you can read a lot of the like graphic novels and stuff for free, essentially.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff on Libby and on Hoopla. I was surprised, and I think it's some of those apps that most people don't know about, and they just it's almost too good to be true in some cases.
Yeah, on Libby, I read quite a few of the Berserk volumes, because it's black and white. It's not. That's another component. Like I think like you had the like pulp novels, but you also have some comics and manga that's mass produced black and white with not as higher quality paper. And I wonder if the kind of American comics that we read could move towards that more. I didn't see a lot of it, but I don't see why they don't try that more, because manga is so popular.
It is. And I think there's a lot of reasons for the popularity in manga, but I do think that they could start to cut back on. I wonder if they don't cut back on quality, on paper quality, on things like that, and drop the price because they want to keep charging the same price. They don't want to drop from $6 or $5.
Yeah,
which is fine. I do appreciate the quality stock, the quality. You can the tactile feeling you have holding the book in your hands. I do get the draw to that.
Yeah.
But will they reach more people if they cut back on the quality and just get it out there, or even offer it on digital for a lot less? For instead of charging $4 for a book, charge $2 for a book digitally.
I think that might kill the comic shops, though.
It might, yeah. So it's a tough balance because you want to support the comic book stores, so you don't want to undercut them. So because they are, and I wonder, just like record stores back in our day. I mean, I used to love going to the record store. I miss them. I miss going to the record store and just flipping through CDs or cassettes or records and trying to find something new and just taking a chance on something and just saying, this cover looks cool. This band seems cool. I'm going to give it a try. Most of the time it wasn't very good or you didn't enjoy it. But it's just the feeling of hunting something new and having all this possibility. Yeah. It's just a different feeling. So, will comic book stores go the route of the record store? Is that where they're headed, is extinction? I hope not. But it's a tough, I don't know how they meet their goals, their profit. I don't know how they stay open. I don't know how they do it.
It's suckers like us.
Yeah, I guess. I need to try and find someone. If someone's out there listening who either runs a store or runs a small press, get in touch with us. I'd love to have you on and to talk about all these things and to talk about margins and what it's like to be on the other side of it. I'd love to. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
What do you think about the price? Are they too expensive?
No, I mean, I was saying that earlier, like I feel in some cases, yes, I feel like I'm getting overcharged. In other cases, if I'm loving it, it's worth it. And I also feel like in some ways, we're in a small little niche group here because I don't think a lot of people are reading trades, and there is that possibility that because if you are thinking about resale value, we might have something that could be worth a lot one day, and we are trying to, we have the physical media here. We're not doing digital as much, and so I like that, and I think there is some possibility that one day, a few of these could have some value.
Yeah, I hope so. I always wondered, would it be better for the big, like for the Marvels and DCs of the world to go to trades and kind of do the experimental, they're afraid to stuff that they're afraid to invest too much time and energy in to do the monthly floppy. But then I don't know if it would really support as wide of an audience, and it would draw people, it would take people away from the stores too. So it's tough.
Yeah, very tough.
Wow. Yeah, it's a little bleak, but so I guess are you ready to kick it off?
Yeah, you might have the first one here because I don't recognize that title. So
yeah, so my first one was Blood Squad 7 Strike File. This is by Image. This is by Joel Casey and Paul Fry. Now, there's been a lot of 90s nostalgia lately. Not a lot, not a ton, but there's been a fair amount of 90s nostalgia with the big muscles and the pockets and the extreme stuff. And I've been enjoying it because that's kind of like, it was a fun time in comics for me, even though it destroyed the comic book industry. So then we didn't know at the time, or at least I didn't. I was just a kid. So anyway, I enjoy all that stuff, but I'm just not a fan of this book. I think when I read the first issue of this one, because this is a one shot, this is a strike file. The dialogue, I just felt like it was lacking. There's two professional people talking, and they talk like they're teenagers, and they talk like they're little kids, and they bicker back and forth, and I don't know, it just didn't make sense. It just didn't work for me. Just the dialogue, I just wasn't a fan of. And yeah, I just felt like this one fell flat for me. I wasn't a huge fan, unfortunately, and I really wanted to like it, but it was leaning a little too heavily into nostalgia, and then it had, the artwork wasn't quite. If you're going for the nostalgia route, it wasn't bad artwork, but it wasn't really hitting the nostalgia button either. So yeah, just kind of a dud for me.
Okay. Who is the publisher of that one?
It's Image.
Image. Okay. I think I might have seen it, but yeah, I didn't pick that one up. So the first one I have is, and I've been reading this for a while, and this is issue number 4 of Paranoid Gardens. This is from Dark Horse Comics. And my big question before going into this one is, are we going to get any more answers of what the hell's going on in this world where we have, it's basically set in, it's kind of like it's a home or a treatment center for people that are recovering from various issues that aren't very well explained. Maybe they're ex-superheroes or some bizarre alien or monster looking people. It's not well explained. And sometimes I really like that. I'm okay to not know everything. So I don't know if that question gets answered here. Maybe a little bit. We do learn a little bit more of one of the main characters, Nurse Lou or Louise. She can kind of heal people, I guess, but she has this like blank spot in her history. And we actually get some reveal to learn kind of like what traumatic event happened to her. But we don't really know why she's at this place. So it doesn't really answer all the questions. There is an interesting, really campy looking Dracula character that looks like Eddie Munster that's introduced. And I thought it was kind of funny. And so he's got, I don't know if he's a real like vampire character. It's just like there are all these bizarre components that are mixed in here. And I still really like the artwork. It's very detailed. I really enjoy looking at it. The cover is like wild. It's got a bizarre premise, which works for me and is keeping me going. And sometimes it's, zigging when you think it should be zagging, if you will. So yeah, overall, it was close to being my pick of the week, actually. So I was surprised a little bit. I was pleasantly surprised because at least I got a little bit more kind of answers to what's going on.
Oh, nice. I have the first 4 issues. I just haven't started them yet, but I always get nervous when I think Lost kind of broke a lot of us because it introduces questions and questions and questions. And while it's fun to speculate into, well, I wonder what this is and what does that mean? Mm-hmm. But then you have a pile of all these questions and a pile of all these things that they built. And then it's like, how are they going to wrap all this up? Like, what is this all?
Yeah.
When are the answers going to come?
Yeah, they didn't wrap up a lot of stuff, but I still liked it. But I watched it, what do you call it? Binged it or whatever during COVID. So I didn't feel maybe it wasn't as jaded as maybe people that are watching it week to week, maybe.
Oh no, it was fun. I mean, I think I caught up to I jumped on it late. Mm-hmm. I think I caught on, in the 2nd or 3rd season. I was watching it as it came out, but it was so much fun to speculate and all these questions and all these things that you were like, what does this mean? What does that mean? And how is this connected? Mm-hmm. All that was fun. So I'm not too jaded. I just get worried because not everyone can create all these questions and then nail the landing because it's tough. It's fun, but then there's that, what happened with this and what happened with that? But that's a whole nother podcast. We should talk about that one day. So the next one for me is Devour. It's a one-shot. It's one of the books on It Happened on Hyde Street. This is by Image Comics. In this book, it's Get Thin or Die Trying. So our main character, woman, discovers a secret that her family has kept from her, and on how they remain so thin. So her mom and her grandmother remain thin, and we learn why they stay thin, how they stay thin, the extremes that they go to. Very, very extreme, very far extremes that they go to stay thin. And our main character is preparing for a wedding. She's trying to drop a few pounds before the wedding day to be able to fit in her dress. So does she go for the gym, or does she go for the other route? I guess you have to read to find out. But yeah, I think it was a good one because it's a commentary on body image and diet fads and things like that without being preachy and without being kind of, over the top with it. So I appreciated that. It develops the characters enough to make you invested in the story, makes them relatable, and it has an emotional punch to the story too, and so that those are the most effective ways to get across commentary for me, is to make us invested in the story and in the characters, and then we'll care a lot more about what you're trying to say instead of just banging us over the head with an idea. So I'll just hit on two more really quickly. Spawn 358. I don't know why I keep buying this. I love the artwork. It reminds me of Jim Lee. It's Brett Booth. The story I just can't get into. I've been trying to get into it. I just can't. I can't get invested in the story. What am I missing? If someone's out there reading this book and loving it, please help me, because I don't get it. It's not bad. It's just not. It just don't feel like we get anywhere. And we're talking about the cost of comics. I feel like every month I wait for it, I buy it, then we just move just barely an inch. And when we have these other books that really do these really, really, really great things with their stories, it's tough to stay on a book that's in the 358 number when it's like, yeah. So it's just tough. So I think this might be the last one for me until maybe sometime in the future where things will be able to give it a shot later. Things will change. The other one is Violent Femmes, number 2. This is one by Maria Lovett. And I really liked Crave. That's a series that we talked about during that series. And I tried this one. It's a vampire story. I just can't. I can't get into it. I just don't. It's not hooking me at all. So I'm out on this one. It's just not. It's not my cup of tea. I'm not the audience, and I am throwing in the towel for Violent Femmes.
Wow. Yeah, I did. I'll just say I peeked quickly at the Devour. It happened on Hyde Street, and I liked the premise, and I looked at the artwork, and it looked good. So very, out of those three, that might be the one. Although I really liked Maria Lovett, and I was eyeing that one, so I don't know if I probably won't pick up the Violent Femmes, which is a band, right?
It is, yeah.
That I know Femmes pretty well, but
yeah, it is. I thought the name sounded familiar. Jeez.
So next up for me, I have Knights versus Samurai. Probably not the most catchy title, but I read the first one. I thought the story was okay. I thought it was good, but then the artwork really seemed off. And I wonder now, having looked at issue number 2, the artwork looks very different to me, and yet it's the same artist. And maybe it was a colorist change. Now I'm wondering about that. And I neglected to actually go back and compare, but I actually think the artwork has improved quite a lot. And I found it to be, fine, and had its own kind of style, without going into too much detail, because I'm probably not an expert in that. But sometimes it just works for you, and other times it doesn't. But in this case, I actually feel like the story was a little bit less intriguing. The main kind of knight character, Sir Charles, does have a battle here with fighting against these kind of samurai. He's on a quest, I think, as I understand. It's somewhat of like a Knights of Templar type of thing, or Crusader kind of quest, which is appealing to me. Then there is this kind of side story of characters that are on the ship that brought the knights over to the east, and that's fine. I think my biggest kind of issue is I just don't feel any character development yet happening. I don't feel like I know anybody or care about anybody. And so it's a lot of there's some intrigue and action. And this is a case where actually the price is reasonable. It's only $2.99. Interestingly, we'll mention it because we talked about it. But not hating it, but just really wanting, maybe I'm a character driven person. I just wanted more.
Yeah, it's tough to not have the characters to latch onto. I think that's probably one of my biggest complaints about things I don't enjoy is just don't feel invested in the characters.
Yeah.
So the next one for me is it's kind of I guess it's like a project that Image is doing. They're having some one shots. They're trying some one shot stories, which I kind of admire that because a lot of the excuse me, a lot of these stories that they try to squeeze into a miniseries don't really need to be, and I think they're tighter and more concise when they're a one shot, and they can be the story can be told and it's very compressed, but it's compressed in a good way. It doesn't get drawn out. You talk about having kind of feeling like you're paying for something and you're getting a story versus something like Spawn where I feel like I'm not getting any story. This is great to see. I think this is really cool. This is written by David M. Boer and Drew Zucker. So this one is about the setup for this one is like an American Psycho. For those of you who had read American Psycho, Patrick Bateman type of, stockbroker living in New York, 20, 30 something womanizer, just asshole basically. Like, thinks he owns the world and thinks everyone should kind of bow to him and thinks he's the shit. Basically, that's our main character. His name is Nola, excuse me. So this one, we start to learn about his very dark secret, and we go back to his childhood, some events that happened to him in his childhood that can get a little heavy, but we learn about how he escaped that bad situation, and it brings it to current day when his secret he can no longer hide, and it revolves around a painting. For those of you who are kind of wondering where this may go, it reminded me a little bit of Oculus, the movie Oculus, and it's objects that are more than just an object, that they're not necessarily possessed, but they have very dark secrets. I'm trying not to spoil it, but overall, I thought the story progresses really well. I thought it's very, very tight, and we have this character that is presented to us like a Patrick Bateman type of character. Actually, we find him to be sympathetic by the end and empathetic at the end because of what he's been through and the things that he has to face. And we realize why he is the way he is after what he's experienced. Not that that's an excuse, just you learn about his journey. So yeah, the end, I'm not the biggest fan of the end, but still, I thought it was a good one, and keep your eye out for these one shots. I think they're really, really neat idea.
Yeah, that sounds intriguing to me. You sold me on that one. So I might. Well, there's a lot to check out, so I can't promise, but I would love to check that one out. So what I have for you is a case where I got good. I really fell for something here. This is one of those where I was just like, why did I do this? So it's weird. It has a double cover. It's got a fancy like exterior cover, if you will. It's glossy or whatever. And it says DC All In, and you see Superman, and he's, I was like, oh, this must be the new absolute Superman. I'm so dumb. And I like convinced myself, it's just automatically, I'm going to pick this up because I at least want to check out the first one. But of course not. This is Action Comics number 1073. And this is by Mark Waid and Clayton Henry. So I have to say, compared to some of the other things where I read, and it's like a very, kind of, you're midway into the story, this one wasn't too bad. I had to look up who Mon-El is, and he's kind of like a Superboy character, but he is vulnerable to lead instead of Krypton. And what's interesting, actually, and I don't know if you've been reading this, Steve, or not, but they've been in the kind of phantom zone where people are banished, if they're like criminals are banished. So I thought that was a really cool premise. And so Mon-El is with Superman in this phantom zone. I'm just not sure why. And then we kind of cut to the actual Superboy and some other character, and I don't know who that is, who's in like some kind of intergalactic zoo. I mean, I just like, I think the premise is really interesting. I just think the dialogue is a little bit like ripped out of, in the 1960s. And then at the end, there was a really long 9-page preview of something else, which is like a Supergirl. And that's another topic we could discuss. Sometimes these previews, I'm like, this isn't what I came for. In some cases, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to read that. But anyway, so overall, it's just not for me. So I can't really comment on it too much else because I just didn't really know what was going on. But I think next week we'll actually be talking about the absolute Superman. So if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it is this week. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, they got you. When I get that message from you early in the week, it's like, yeah, they got you. Like they get me all the time. So it happens.
Then there's 2 covers. Like then the second cover is obviously like, okay, there's all kinds of stuff going on. It said, oh, this is the Phantoms week 4 kind of. It's like clearly some series. Wow.
It happens to all of us. Don't yeah. They got you. Yeah, so the next one for me is the Hexiles. It is by Mad Cave Studios, which Mad Cave I think does some pretty good stuff. This is by Colin Bunn, Joe Picardo, Manoli Martinez, and El Torres. So this one, the setup is a bunch of siblings are called in to the funeral of their father, and these are step siblings because this guy was like a serial reproducer. He just had kids everywhere. None of the kids really know him or know much about him. He's been absent from their lives. And when they arrive for the funeral, they learn about the deals that their dad has made. And this is why he's been so successful and he's been so rich and powerful, is because of the deals he's made with the devil or with the devil-like entity. And now that he's gone, the toll still has to be paid. And now the kids are told that they're on the hook to pay the toll that they are owed because they want what was agreed upon. So they're next in line and they owe. It's kind of like, he took out a loan and they're on the hook for it. So this one, I thought the premise, I like the premise of it, but as we go through the different kids, and this goes back to characters, there's so many of them that I just couldn't become attached or really care about any of them. They just seemed all kind of bratty and annoying, and I just couldn't I didn't find myself latching on to any of them. And it happens pretty quickly. All these things happen pretty quick. So yeah, the art I really liked. I like the art really fit the story. There's some Lovecraftian Cthulhu aspects to it, which I thought were cool. But I just didn't connect with any of the characters, and probably because there were so many of them. So I will not be continuing on this one.
Yeah, visually it looks great. Like the covers and the interior work is just very appealing.
Yeah.
I think
Oh shit! I'm sorry. I have another one. Back to back. I have so many books this week. So the next one for me was the Magic Order 5, number 2, and this is by Mark Millar and Matteo Buffgani. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. It's by Dark Horse Studios. I was impressed with the first issue. I thought there was a lot that happens, and this one continues with the same story. It's more setting up a foundation for later in the series, and for the characters. It's not as compelling as the first issue, and that's kind of to be expected. I mean, I think they have to, when you jump out of the gate with all these things happening, there's there has to be a little bit of a slowdown to kind of start developing things and to kind of get entrenched in the story and the characters. So it does keep you questioning what's really happening, what's really not, and you're not really sure what's real or what's not. So I like that part of it. And there's developing a pretty rich world here with this one. So yeah, I'll be continuing with the Magic Order number 5.
I'm bummed because I read number 1 and I didn't realize that number 2 came out. So it sounds like it's keeping the momentum going. So speaking of something that you read and I didn't, I think last week you talked about Null Hunter, and the subtitle is An Olympos Saga. And I think we chatted at some point to learn that this is some kind of take on the trials of Hercules. And I know the one thing I will say is I noted more of that kind of imagery here. And there's even 2 characters. I think a father character is named Zeus, kind of like Zeus. And then there's another female character named Hera. So that's, to me, very clearly Zeus and Hera. But as I probably won't mention too much else, it's this bionic man who has essentially committed some heinous violence and is kind of getting another chance at life. But there is a catch. And we'll just agree that, the artwork has that, as you mentioned, that grill. It's a cross between gritty and then very kind of different pops of color that somehow work pretty well. So yeah, generally I'm happy with it. It looks like it might be 12 issues, so that might be a long ride for us.
Wow, nice.
I'm guessing.
So were you? It sounds like you'll be continuing with this one. Is that, or you're on the fence?
Yes, I think it's one of those where if I see it again, I'm almost going to pick it up. It's it's not one of those automatics yet for me.
Yeah.
So let's see where the second one goes.
I'm excited now that it's 12 issues. That'll be a nice trade to have on the shelf. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I wonder why you call me a bad influence for collecting things. All right. So, before we get into our picks, I have one more, which is The Sacred Damned. This is another one of these one-shots that Image is doing. I forget the project name, but there's a specific initiative to do this. And like I said, I think it's really neat. So I'm glad they're doing it. Now, with The Sacred Damned, there's a man who seemingly has it all. He's a college student. He's an athlete. Has all the women. He has all the things going for him. He's living the life until he finds himself sleepwalking and eating things, and he eats a lot, and he gains lots and lots of weight. And when I say he eats everything, he eats everything. He eats lots of things, and not only food but other things. So it gets pretty graphic. So when someone comes in to help him, and this person comes in and tries to figure out what's wrong with him, and the explanation we get is pretty neat. It's not something I remember seeing very often. So I appreciated the fact that they went different, like a different route. And I thought it was creative. I thought it was something new that they were trying. And I don't think I've seen that before. The kind of the antagonist. So it is creepy and fun. It's just creepy fun, and there's it has a nice mix of everything. So I'm glad they're doing this. Now this one did have a number 1 on the cover, so I'm not sure if this is an ongoing or if this is just a one shot. Because the way that I understood it is that this is a one shot, and if it is a one shot, I'll be happy. If it's a series, I'll be happy. But if it comes back for issue 2, I'll be picking it up.
It's I learned that this is based on an Islamic myth. Interestingly, I did see that one, and I wonder why I didn't pick it up. I have no idea now. So my pick of the week is from DC Comics, believe it or not. Um, we're continuing to attempt to work with kind of DC and Marvel here and there. And this is the character of Lobo, and this is subtitled Cancellation Special. And on the front, it says, "Buy this comic or a child might see it." So it's kind of interesting. It's if I have not mentioned it, this is a one shot, so it's quite a few pages. I'm going to say at least 50 pages, so pretty good value here. I have to admit, what I heard is that Lobo is like a bounty hunter, and he's kind of like the Deadpool of DC in a way. I would say that he is like a chaotic, neutral character at best. Maybe bordering on evil. He seems to be actually an evil guy here, and I will say he does kill many people just kind of for no reason. So in a very chaotic way. So it's in some ways a sad premise, because he ends up on this peaceful, low tech planet, and he's just mad at the world, and doesn't want to be there. He's lost his favorite space motorcycle. So it's kind of got this intergalactic feel. There's a lot of, then he is visited by these other aliens that want to hire him. And I found all these kind of characters to be kind of funny. There is a lot of humor here. And he goes up against a character called Murder Crotch Slaughterface, just to give you a sense of what's going on. I mean, it's just over the top, and in many ways, it hit me at the right time. I don't know. Sometimes that stuff really, it falls flat for me, and some of the humor didn't always really work. And you kind of have to get used to the language, because he says funny things, like kind of repeats himself a little bit, but it's okay. I can't imagine it's for a lot of people, but I just thought I really liked the fantastical setting. It's funny. It's a little bit heavy on the violence at times, I think, for a lot of people that may not work, but you need to know that going in. So it wasn't like a huge pick of the week for me. I just maybe edged out one or two others.
Which one was it close to being your pick? Which one did it edge out?
So I think I mentioned the Paranoid Gardens number 4 because it kind of improved upon, I think, the previous few issues, and gave me a few answers. And I've always really liked the premise and the artwork. And this artwork is also very good. It's not as polished as some of the DC and Marvel stuff, so it's got its own style to it. He is apparently like he cannot be killed as well. Like he himself is like burned, attacked, mutilated, and he seems to be unscathed.
Oh, he does sound kind of like the Deadpool of the DC universe.
Yeah, I don't know enough of his backstory, but you don't really need to going into this.
So my pick this week, I had 9 books this week. So my pick was a book that you had talked about, I think last week or the week before, is The Exorcism at 1600 Penn. It's by IDW. This is by Hannah Rose May, art by Vanessa Del Rey, and Jordi Belair, I believe, does lettering or does backup art. So the idea of someone in the White House being possessed is such an interesting concept for me. I never really, we get people possessed. It's usually like a random person. And I think that is also effective when it's random, because you imagine, what if it's me? What if, something gets into me? But the fact that someone could infiltrate something like White House and potentially have their hand on the button is pretty neat. I think it's a cool premise. And like you had mentioned, this focuses a lot more on the kids than I was expecting. And I like that because it did ride the line of exploring the mom who is president and all the things that she does, all the different political maneuvering that goes along with being president, with all the difficult decisions, and also what it must be like to be a kid. It's hard enough being a kid now with social media and all the things that kids have, just kids being kids. Just generally, it's just a difficult time. You make it you pile on being part of the first family and having to hear all the vile things that people say about other people in politics. You can't really escape it anymore. So there must be a lot to deal with. And I never really thought of it that way until this book kind of explored it. So yeah, I thought it was I really like the setup. I love the art by Vanessa Del Rey. It's something that we had talked about before about her artwork. Just spectacular. It really fits this story. The long, scratchy, bold lines and just the feel is very, very oppressive. You feel like something's wrong almost. It gives you that kind of really horror feel to it. So yeah, I think all of it really works. All of it really works well together. I thought it did everything I want a first issue to do. It set up, it gave us a problem, it gave us characters, it gave us a story. It does all these things. And I believe it's only 4 issues. So I'm excited to see how it all develops in these next 3 issues. Yeah, I think I was really impressed. One of the better first issues I've read in a while.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I think it was a couple weeks ago. I read this one, and yeah, the artwork is really, I think, phenomenal. Vanessa Del Rey. Yeah, you said. So I didn't realize it was only 3.
Yeah, I believe it's 4 total, but there are so 3 more. Yeah,
yeah, three more. Okay, makes sense. Yeah,
but yeah, I think it's. But I do wonder. How much of what the daughter's experiencing is anxiety and stress related to being in this position.
Oh yeah, she's in a huge amount of stress,
mm-hmm.
and yet her brother is like handling things swimmingly somehow.
Mm-hmm. So I do wonder. There are some clues that other people are witnessing things or seeing things, but not sure if that's legitimate or not. But I like that we're questioning it because it's not just a for sure. This is what's happening. So good stuff. Yeah. So that is Pick of the Week, issue 62. It's a good one. Lots of good stuff today. Lots of great conversations as usual. If you are listening and want to get in touch with us, the best place is in our forum at pagestewing.com. Come by and say hello. We talk comic books, movies, TV shows, nonsense, pretty much anything you can think of. Drop by there. We are reading a few different books together at the moment, and we're adding more very soon because we always do. But if you'd like to join us, please drop by there. Say hello. If you know what I'm missing with Spawn, why I don't enjoy it, or maybe I'm just going over my head, please let me know because I want to like it. So get in touch. Let us know. There's also a button. There's also a link down below in the description of wherever you're listening to this to send us a message. So you can send us a message and say hello, or this is what you're missing in Spawn, you idiot. You can do that as well. So until next time, hope everyone's having a great week. Hang in there, and we will talk to everyone very soon.
Bye-bye.